Hello, and welcome to another class video presentation under the Diploma of Leadership and Management, still under Cluster 1. This time we're going to talk about communication. Now, it is important as managers that we are able to adapt our communication style to different people. And we all know that people would have different personalities and different approaches in terms of communication and different preferences. Now, today, we're going to use the DISC tool to first identify the different personality types that we may have within our teams and understand what their preferred communication style is. So we then learn how to adapt our own communication style to be able to send a message across quite accurately, and it is well accepted, and we efficiently get to have the communication going instead of making several mistakes and choosing the wrong approach in sending out the message. Even when we interpret or receive messages from different people, some of them, depending on the personality types, actually can't be taken in and in a literal sense. It's got to be done more on what the intent is and what was the approach, and also what is most important and valuable to that personality type. Okay, so first we're going to find out what the tool is about and how it helps us identify the personalities and what these personality types are. Now, usually I go and I start with letting you learn more about the personality types and give you more background on that, and then move to the communication style. But because this video is just really focused on communication, we're just going to slowly touch and quickly and briefly touch on the personality types, and then go straight to the communication approach that they prefer. Okay, so we are using the DISC tool, and this has been used since the 1920s, and it's been used in thousands of organizations worldwide. And it is only a guide. It's not about putting people in boxes, but it is a guide. We all know that personalities are different, and they're formed by genetics, by upbringing, by culture, tradition, by the parents, by the people and experiences. So there's a lot that comes to the factors of the formation of each personality. But whatever it is, how we communicate has a lot to do with that, and how we adapt to these personalities also allows us to develop a skill whereby we don't change our personalities, but we just change the way we communicate. Okay, looking at different personality types in a more objective manner, being able to adjust with the goal of being able to communicate efficiently. Okay, so 4 personality types. Now, according to the DISC tool, there are 4 personality types: D, I, C, and S, as what you see on the screen. Now, the top quadrant here that has dominance and influence, the communication style or pace is fast, okay, and quite different in terms of the mood they set and what their priorities are. The dominant personality type could appear quite direct in their language, in their communication. They're not the fluffy type when it comes to the choice of words and the approach. They're very assertive and sometimes could be quite aggressive because they want their message sent clearly and received with no waste of time. Now, they're very results oriented, so they're very task focused, which means that majority of the words they use are based on the task or the activity rather than the people involved in a situation. Okay, very firm, and just a lot of conviction in what they say, and very strong-willed in terms of keeping their opinions and principles when they're providing that sort of message. Now, in terms of the influence, they are fast, as I've mentioned, like the dominant in terms of their communication pace, but they're more enthusiastic and optimistic in their language. They are also very people-focused, which means that quite a lot of what they say talks about people, who's involved, the names of people, and how other people would feel or perceive them. So both the D and the I, as I say, dominance and the influence types, they're fast, but their focus would be different. Okay, so now we go on to the C and the S. The C and the S are a bit slower in terms of pacing in their communication. But there's a difference. Okay, the C may appear a little bit like the D because they're very task focused as well. But how different they are with the D is the pace, because they're slower than the D, and they're also very methodical. So there's a lot of detail involved when the C's talk. And they require also a lot of details, which means that they will ask a lot of questions, okay? And they put a lot of facts and figures in their language. They could be quiet and observant because they're analytical. They're thinking through what they're going to say. They're thinking through the information that they're receiving. And also when they deliver that, they can be very systematic. The flow is quite logical. Okay, so that's the C. Now the S, though they are slower in pace, they are people focused. So like the I, that's where they are on the right side of this quadrant. They are more about, okay, how does this affect other people? They're very accommodating and even-tempered and very calm in their way of communication. And unlike the I, that could possibly focus on how they are being perceived by others, okay, because the influence is more on, relationship building and maintaining and their status in certain relationships. The S is more creating calmness and peace and serenity around them and balance, okay? They're very tactful in their language because they do not want to offend people, because they're very empathic. They're very the empathic type, and very patient in terms of receiving communication. So they would be very good listeners. They're the type that would think about what you've said, and they would acknowledge your feelings and feel very calm when you talk to the S's. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Now, how it feels like is the D will make you feel a little bit more intimidated, as I say, depending on the relationship and the interaction, but they really want to get their message across. And sometimes, or most of the time, I want to have the last say in a discussion. Well, the influence is about, possibly giving you the very nice parting chit chat as you finish a conversation. It makes you feel very accepted and funny. The influence people could be very funny. They're comical. They love to get a smile. There's a lot of emotional engagement with the influence, so you kind of feel quite connected with them. Well, the S, you also feel that connection, but in a more serene, calm way. And with the C, it's more like a banter of information, like you're being questioned a lot. It's more of like try to clarify. So there's a lot of words exchanged with the C. Sometimes it makes you feel like you are giving more information that you're actually ready to give. So, and could be a bit confronting as well. So I want to define how it feels, because when you speak to people and you're starting to decide what personality type they are, The feeling is something that you could easily get rather than what is being said. So I mentioned what is being said by these different personality types. I said D's and the C's are more method and what, whereas the I and the S would be about who. Okay, so kind of get the majority of their language, and then you can start filtering that. Okay, and then how did the interaction make you feel? And then you will start having a better idea of what sort of personality type you will be dealing with. Okay. Now, and yes, as I've mentioned a while ago, C and D are very task-oriented, where the S and I are very people-oriented in their language and their approach and their decision-making. The C and the S you'll have a very reserved, private type of conversation with them, whereas the D and I doesn't matter, public, private doesn't matter to them. Very active and very upbeat in their communication. Okay, so some of these things actually describe personalities and the focuses. Okay, so again, the D and I, they're more action-based, what's going to happen, result-based for D, enthusiasm is always there, and about collaboration with other people, whereas the D and the C is more of the challenge of getting the prize. It's a bit about getting something done rather than who's with me, you know. And you've got the S, which is the very supportive way, and C and S are very stable because the C is very much into organization and logic, while the S is about routine, you know, balance, and accuracy is the C. So when you have a look at this, when you're trying to catch the attention of a D, which is very result-oriented, action-oriented, and challenge, that's what you need to start your opening statement with. It's about what are we going to get, what do we need to do, and what's in it for us, you know? So it's the challenge. Whereas the I is a bit more, if you have a lot of enthusiasm in your opening statement, and you include other people because they love collaboration and there's a lot of action into it and what's happening, then you get the attention of the I. To get the attention of the S, it's about asking, mentioning things about supporting and balance and stability. So you catch their attention by mentioning these things. And you can even use those words if you want to and be a bit more creative. You know, it's like, this is how you help me so we can help things. Now, we want to put things in a more stable ground or just to settle things. So these are the words that the S's really respond well to. Whereas the C is more on, okay, so these are the facts because they love accuracy, you know, and this is what we've noticed. And, you know, ask me all the questions because they also love the challenge of being able to understand something. So problem solving could be one thing that they might like, but only on the proper timing. So if they're not too busy thinking of other things, because you remember they have an influx of information going to their brain, then you need to have proper timing with them because they also want to have that quiet time, you know, that balance. Make sure that with the C and the S, you set up before you have that communication, especially if it's a sensitive information, to have that privacy, you know, set it up in a venue where not many people are listening, private and personal for the S, and the C, private, okay, and time to think. And also not noisy, not too much distraction going around. The C loves to think, okay, so they need that conducive space. The D and I, doesn't matter if it's external, yep, have a lot of energy with the I. With the D, just put a bit more of challenge in there, and you know, so now you know the kind of feeling. So when you're communicating, a lot has to do with body language as well, because we all know communication, only 7% of that is on the words that you speak, whereas more than 50% of communication is on body language. And in between, you've got the tone, the pitch, okay, that goes with your verbal communication. Now, if you think about it, just imagine the D and the I. What would they be saying? How would they sound? So tone and pitch, okay? And what is the body language that you should expect from them? So D would be more of the authority type, more power, creating that space of, that they will put their hands on their their waist. It's a widening stance for power. So anything that has to do with power, they stand up straight to you. Expect that. Okay, so that's their natural language. Their not natural body language. Whereas the I is more upbeat. They move around a lot. They walk around. They pace around, and they laugh. And they have they pretty much have a more louder voice. And then the S is more quiet, and their body language should be, a little bit more reserved. And they're not there to put power or to intimidate you. They're there to be with you and in sync with you. So you kind of have that body language. So with the C, it's more, methodical. So you can see the body language doing that, nodding all the time, asking, moving forward, thinking, and putting them on the chin. So these are the body language of the C. Counting. So these are all the body languages. Now, to build rapport at the beginning of a conversation is extremely important. Okay, building rapport creates and starts to build trust. Now, if you don't have that rapport with the other personality type, it would be very hard to get your message across accurately because there's that wall. Okay, so to go past that wall is to be in rapport with them. So if you are with a D, your body language would have to be, you have that stance of confidence. Whereas the I, you've got that stance of, hey, come on in here. There's personal space doesn't really matter much with the I's. They love to be closer to people because they want to be connected. So getting up, but if you move too far from the I will start thinking, oh, this person isn't connected with me. Therefore, anything that you say will just fly. So it's good to have that rapport. And the S, have a very calm approach with them when you talk to them. Don't intimidate them. To intimidate an S would make them feel very uncomfortable. And with the C, just make sure that you are sure what you're doing. You don't intimidate as well as you don't go below. It's just on that same level. Okay. And that's body language. All right. So let's go to every single type. Have a look at their the description or their attributes. You know that they're decisive. The D is very demanding in their tone, and could be very impatient. They want the answers from yesterday. Very result-oriented and very bold in the choices of words. And they love to be in positions of authority as well, love to make decisions and take control over the decisions they make. So to tell a D what to do and not give them the control of being able to decide on what to do is probably not going to be accepted very well. So although you are also showing confidence, you have to show them that respect, that they're able to make that decision themselves. Okay, so you veer it towards your conversation towards getting them to realize what they want to do and getting them the final say so that you can get their full commitment. Now, these are some tips when you speak to a high D. Now, it's saying high D because it is very possible that people will have a combination of personality types. I could be a D and an I at the same time, or a D and a C, okay? And it could be that I might be a split of 3 or even 4, okay, personalities, but they all change depending on the environment, depending on the topic, depending on the interaction, who they speak with. So there's a lot of factors that would affect a person's personality, because people are, by nature, we're malleable in terms of how we adapt to our environment. It's just really a survival strategy that we all have. But normally there's a major personality type that is being used more often than the rest. And you know what it is when you feel it, you know. So with the D, you can see the stance, you can feel that they want that, they want their ground seen, you know, very clearly. Do not ramble or waste your time when you speak to a D. Make sure you are prepared on what you want to say. Stay on topic and on task. They have no time to waste. Be very clear, specific, and to the point. Try to avoid chit chat. Try to avoid too much icing and flowers. They just want to see it the way it is. Okay, that's how they you get their attention. Come prepared with, if we did this, what would it look like? Be very clear about that, and present it in logic that they could simply understand in a very short amount of time. Don't appear that you lack confidence, you know, because that's how you kind of get their attention and respect and their opening ears, is that they know that they're speaking to somebody who is worth their precious time. If you do agree, disagree with the D, which could be very, very likely, focus on the facts. Do not focus on character. Just mention the actions, okay? And keep your eye on the prize when you're speaking with the D. Taking things too personally and too emotionally with the D is only a recipe for disaster. They love to be objective about their communication style and the decisions that they make. So look at it in their perspective. Objectivity is key with the high D. Now the I, okay? The I, you know, is enthusiastic and lively. It's like speaking to Oprah. It's all about love and the lessons of life and who they've helped and, you know, how they've impacted people. So with them, talk about them, because they love speaking about themselves and how they relate to others. Okay, they love talking about their dreams and hoping that people will share that dream. So it's their way of giving information about themselves is really just information given out because they want to find out whether they could connect with you and with other people. Plan your interaction that would be, you know, you have to know them a little bit more on what they prefer and what lights them up, and plan your conversation towards that. Like, say, okay, I know you love to go out. Why don't we do this? You know, I know you love that restaurant. Why don't we have a chat there? So it's about having that connection between them and the outside. Okay. Allow some time for chit chat. They would not go straight to the point. They're probably the ones that will talk about what happened over the weekend before they get down to business. Don't drive in too much information because you will lose them. Their minds are going so fast. The eyes have got this focus on people, so they're actually reading you and they're feeling more than they're talking. You know, although they're talking a lot, but a lot of that energy is spent with connecting. So putting facts and figures that are too objective, they're going to lose that. Okay. So help them get organized, because since they've got a lot of distraction happening, they're reading a lot of different languages based on your body language and the people around them, because they're very connected externally. You might need to actually summarize what you've discussed and put them in a logical manner. So, you know, nothing is lost in translation. And when it comes to decisions about people, be very sensitive, because the eyes do not like to wait for decisions when it comes to people being affected by it. So make sure that though you're not ready to make decisions or give them the answers, you try to reassure them at how much it means to you to give that answer straight away or the decision straight away, and you understand how it impacts other people. So keep connected, even though you're not ready, but keep connected, and provide ideas as well, because they would love to collaborate with people. And if they can't make up their minds, if you really want to get their attention, talk about what other people think or decide or say about one thing, for as long as it is ethical, and you're following privacy and confidentiality, but just safe things that you can say about consensus, and offer incentives for their willingness to take risks. So provide a picture for them on how it makes them look to other people and how more connected they will be to other people. Okay, because that's the reward they want to hear. Now, the S, as we all know, very easily communicated to. What is hard to communicate with an S is when you disrupt routine and you're putting out something new, because it takes them a bit of time to embrace change, because they're thinking of how it impacts everyone else, because they love stability. Remember that. So if you're trying to give something new, make sure that you have reassuring words that would accompany that to make the person or the S personality feel grounded, and that things have been really looked at in different aspects and people are being considered. Okay, don't rush them. Show sincere interest in them and the people that they love. Draw out their goals and objections, because the S's they have a tendency to hold back on what they say because they're very conscientious. There's that conscientious thing, but it's more on the people focus side, not to negatively impact people or offend people, and don't force them to make a quick response, because it takes a while for them to try to investigate different aspects. Okay, as I said, balance decision making, and of course logically it will really help them out. And if you can put it in writing, because when you're saying something to them, they might actually already process those thoughts, and they might miss certain sentences between that. Okay, so, and it gives them a lot of comfort knowing that you're taking notes down. And break the ice with some personal comments. It's not about how they look or whatever. It's just about how are you feeling today. It's about knowing how are you feeling. I saw that this is it, and just try to say that you try to come across sensitive. That you're very aware with what's going on, to build that connection with the nest. Like ask specific questions to encourage them to talk a little bit more. Don't interrupt as they speak, because they can get distracted with their amount of thoughts that's going in their head, trying to balance and weigh things out. And look for hurt feelings. Some of them they're not very vocal because they do not want to offend. So there might be some reactions that they're not putting out, so be sensitive with their body language. Now the C, as we all know, you have to have the time to speak with them and give them the time to respond. Okay, stick to the objectives, be very logical and reasonable when you talk to them. Approach them in a straightforward, direct, assertive way, but not aggressive. Okay, do not criticize them as people, the behavior, but tread very carefully. They're very highly self-critical people. So if you've observed it, they most probably that they have observed it themselves. So instead of just telling them the wrong things they've done, ask them. Okay, get them to start thinking. A lot of the C's think while they talk. It's not because they wanted to show off that they know a lot, but because their brains are wired to be able to think things through. And there's so much information that when they hear themselves talk, they're able to process it even more, much better than what's inside their heads. Provide them with as much information as possible. Be very professional when you speak to them. Okay. Look at different sides of the issue. Okay. Look at different perspectives. and will force them to make quick decisions because it takes time for them, like the S's. Be very clear about your type of words and communication give them, because if it's ambiguous, that it just sets them off. They wouldn't want to even think about it. They might procrastinate even. If you do disagree with them and you want to let them understand your point of view, you have to back it up with a lot of information like data and facts and testimonials, which are relevant and coming from reliable sources as well. All right, so not really a test, but there you go. I mean, I'm just going to, these are just pictures of different people that you could guess and what sort of personality types they are. But I just want you to remember that people, you may be wrong with what sort of personality type that person that you're speaking with has, but at least you've got a guide. You know, you're not going in there blindly. You're there with a guide, and just try to discover a little bit more about that person, get them to talk a little bit more to give you the opportunity to make the best selection, and then plan your approach. And then, you know, when you adapt your communication style, you have to be open to making mistakes. And it's really just about using your knowledge and skill and developing more on it, not just about the words that are being said, but also the body language. Because communication isn't just, again, words said, it's about the tone, the pitch, and the body language. So on emotional intelligence, as part of the cluster 1, we need to build social awareness. And that's what we're doing now. And to manage a relationship, you're going to need communication. Okay, a skill in communication. And it's a good thing that you've learned this and you've watched this video, because it will definitely be very useful in terms of influencing someone to do what is meant to be done, influencing someone to understand you, influencing someone to do something that needs to be done at work without making all those horrid mistakes and getting all this misinterpretation and miscommunication happening, getting out of the issue, keeping in mind that you do have a plan and things need to be done, especially in manager's point of view. So, you know, go out of your way, know more about your people, choose the right approach, and you will find that you become a more efficient and effective communicator and manager. Thank you. And more topics on emotional intelligence will be coming, but I hope you've learned quite a lot. And may you have more successes in influencing people to do the right thing through your communication. Thank you.